Hook. In 1888, a nameless envelope arrived at the White House. Inside was a single sheet of paper bearing these chilling words: "You have 2 days to choose. Reveal the secret, or the city will burn." No signature, no name, just a threat. At the time, the Capitol was already buzzing with tensions, and President Grover Cleveland had no idea that this envelope would mark the beginning of one of the strangest conspiracies in American history. The Firebird Letters, the conspiracy that almost burned Washington. I, a city on edge. The year was 1888. Washington, D.C. was transforming rapidly. New buildings, new ambitions, and a federal government swelling with power and controversy. But beneath the veneer of civic growth, darker currents ran. Political factions clashed, industrialists made enemies, social reformers and corrupt officials rubbed shoulders in smoky halls of power. It was a time when a whispered rumor could ignite a scandal, and letters could be more dangerous than guns. To many citizens, the seat of American government was a bastion of stability. But in the shadows, a secret began to take shape, a clandestine plot of arson, blackmail, and murder. And that its center was one of the least likely figures, an obscure clerk in a government office. I, a city on edge. On September 3, 1888, the envelope arrived addressed simply to His Excellency, the President. Inside was that one menacing sentence: "You have 2 days to choose. Reveal the secret, or the city will burn." No signature, no name, just a threat. At the time, the Capitol was already buzzing with tensions, and President Grover Cleveland had no idea that this envelope would mark the beginning of one of the strangest conspiracies in American history. 3. The second threat. 2 days later, a second envelope arrived, this time delivered by hand to the War Department. It read, "You chose poorly. Midnight tomorrow Washington will burn. Save your city if you dare reveal the secret before then." Panic set in. Though no specific target was named, the implication was clear. Not just a building, but the entire city was threatened. That night, every public building, the Capitol, the White House, all were surveyed. Guards were doubled. The peace of the Potomac was uneasy. Amid the alarm, a low-ranking clerk named Thomas Ridgway became a person of interest. He worked in a little-known department, handling confidential records. Normally, he was quiet, diligent, overlooked, but a cryptic line had been found on his ledger, the word Phoenix. Ridgway's ledger entry, Phoenix, seemed innocuous until investigators linked it to a series of arson incidents in nearby Maryland counties. 3 barns had burned with no cause. Witnesses reported strange flickers at night, indistinct shapes in the shadows. None of these fires had been publicized, but local newspapers quietly filled pages with speculation. Was someone testing Washington's defenses? Ridgway was summoned. His hands trembled while he explained that Phoenix was a code name used occasionally in his office for a sensitive file. He refused to explain further. A search of his desk turned up a locked trunk with no key. Forensic inspection revealed traces of kerosene and cloth, suspicious hints of incendiary devices. Yet even now, no proof of intent, no confession, no occupant was known. Ridgway insisted he knew nothing. 5. The Midnight Vigil. Despite all the threat, midnight passed without catastrophe. Washington slept, restless but untouched by fire. The city's defenders breathed relief. The conspirators had not struck, this time. Still, questions remained. Why pass 2 threats and not act? Who was the real mastermind? And what secret had to be revealed or destroyed? The days that followed witnessed a maelstrom of rumor and investigation. Frederick Lee, a war-worn former Union spy, was hired by the president's inner circle to track leads. His reputation for uncovering hidden threats made him ideal and dangerous. Lee's investigation led him to the outskirts of the city, to a forgotten warehouse. There he discovered crates of incendiary chemicals, blueprints for buildings in Washington, and a torn scrap of paper. "Phoenix will rise in fire." The handwriting matched none in the clerical pool. It was unique, odd, with jagged edges as if penned in haste. 6. Hidden agendas. While Lee dug deeper, other forces moved in the dark. Indiana magnate Carlton Reed had been lobbying Congress for rail and shipping contracts. He had enemies in rival firms, in reform movements, and among politicians who saw his ambitions as corrupt or threatening. Reed's fortune had been made quietly. Few knew the extent of his leverage. Meanwhile, reformers in the city pushed for anti-monopoly laws. A powerful committee, the Civic Integrity League, had documents that could threaten Reed's empire. If the League's files were disclosed, Reed would face ruin. Investigators speculated, was Reed behind the Phoenix letters? Was he blackmailing the president to suppress documents? Or had someone else used Reed's name as a cover? Lee's suspicion focused on Reed's chief legal counsel, Victor Halston, a brilliant but abrasive attorney with a reputation for ruthless cunning. Halston had access to official offices and knew Washington's underbelly. He also had personal grudges against League members. League obtained covert entry to Halston's office and found a hidden safe. Inside, letters signed Phoenix, the same threatening phrasing, and lists of political allies with instructions to remain silent. But one page was missing, the secret that the envelope demanded to be revealed. 7. The secret unveiled. Lee confronted Halston with the evidence. Under interrogation, Halston attempted a feint, denial. But Lee produced a ledger handwritten in Ridgway's code name. It detailed a series of bribery payments to city officials in the League. The secret? The Civic Integrity League was deeply compromised. It was not entirely a crusading reform group. Some of its offices were infiltrated, and certain files were doctored. Ridgway, Halston confessed, was merely the courier, but he refused to reveal who commanded him. The interrogators dug deeper into Reed's holdings. Documents traced funding to a shadow network of political dissidents, men with money and no morals. Some had foreign ties to industrial interests abroad. Their goal, to paralyze Washington through fear, pressure the president to withdraw enforcement of reform laws, and make the city pliable to corporate control. Halston's confession triggered arrests. Dozens of men connected to the plot were detained, though the full extent never emerged. Many fled, others recanted under pleas. In the aftermath, the Phoenix letters became fodder for sensational press. The Washington Post dubbed it the Inferno Conspiracy. 8. Aftermath and legacy. Though the city never burned, the shockwaves were profound. The congressional reform agenda slowed. Public trust in the Civic Integrity League wavered. Ridgway's fate was murky. He was held indefinitely, neither tried nor released, spoken of only as the Phoenix clerk. Halston was disbarred and disappeared. President Cleveland, shaken, initiated reforms to secure federal buildings, tighten internal oversight, and shield government offices from conspiratorial threats. The Phoenix letters became a cautionary legend in Washington politics, a symbol of how violence, secrecy, and ambition could weave a threat powerful enough to rattle the heart of a nation. Most history textbooks ignore the Inferno conspiracy, but in underground archives, the Phoenix name still appears in cryptic references, reminding the curious that once, not long ago, Washington nearly bowed to fire and fear.